The Central Bank of Nigeria has placed a ban on the sales of forex to bureau de change operators, saying the parallel market has become a conduit for illicit forex flows and graft. The bank said it will no longer process applications for BDC licenses in the country. According to the CBN governor, weekly sales of foreign exchange by the CBN will henceforth go directly to commercial banks. Emefiele noted that international bodies, including the embassies and donor agencies, have been complicit in illegal forex transactions that have hindered the flow of foreign exchange into the country. He added that the organizations have chosen to channel forex through the black market rather than use the official investors and exporters window called NAFEX. The regulator will henceforth sell dollars and other foreign currencies directly to commercial banks, which have been mandated to sell to Nigerians. Joining us to discuss this on The Morning Show is an economist and a financial expert, Dr. Boniface Chizia. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you in the studio.
Yes.
All right, so you know the big news from the Central Bank of Nigeria, and a lot of people have the opinion that, about time. I mean, the CBN governor has been there for about 6 years now. He knows the territory, he knows the terrain, but then 6 years after, he says we can no longer have business as usual. Is this a brilliant development, or is this something that we should approach with caution?
Well, I think that we have to be careful in reaching a judgment, because it's a path that we've been through before. Quite recently, the year 2000, March 2000.
2020.
2020, sorry, 2020. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
That's right.
2020, and it was stopped.
That's right.
And then, of course, the reasons that were advanced then was that you had COVID and so on. They need to observe COVID protocols and so on, together and so on and so forth. And then if also put it in context also, when you had lockdown everywhere and people were not traveling and so on. So what are you going to do with foreign exchange?
Exactly.
And that's happened. But then somehow, August, even whilst the pandemic was still on, circumstances have not changed to, objectively justify the lifting. It was lifted. And so, the backdrop, which is obvious to everybody, is that those who are behind bureau de change, those who have these licenses, are the movers and shakers in Nigeria. And so, and then they have it, the senators have it, everybody, they have it. Those in prominent government positions, they have people running around for them, carrying these licenses about, and they have multiple licenses. And so what then would happen, and what might happen again, is that the central bank would come under pressure for a review. And so that's the fear. Now, it's obvious we're doing something that we should not do. We went into this because we thought that retail end users of foreign exchange, if they wanted foreign exchange, they shouldn't go through the process of red tape, applying, and so on and so forth. So we wanted to liberalize. And so we did that. So if you wanted to pay some subscriptions overseas, and then you needed to buy your basic travel allowance, business travel allowance, you don't have to go through processes of completing forms and so on and so on. That was the idea behind this. Okay? Yes. And then and to put it in context, you have bureau de changes everywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
And it's only in Nigeria that they get official allocation of foreign exchange. And what we're talking about, an amount of what is reported that was given last year, $5.7 billion. Now, and this is an economy that is bleeding. An economy that's having lots of problems. Okay, it's an economy that's been totally mismanaged. And we're spending this amount of money, and where is it going to? It should be obvious to everybody that was money that was being misspent. So, and it happened in 2016. Again, we had the plan. So, and that's why, and people are already saying they should reverse it and so on and so forth. It's going to cause problems and so on. The commercial banks, that will cause a cog in the wheel and so on. But we must accept the fact that's not the way for us to go as a nation.
Here's the thing. This decision definitely caught people by surprise. That being said, I mean, it's major to say that now, instead of going to BDCs, you should go to commercial banks to fulfill your foreign exchange needs. And in fairness to the banks, they have made themselves available. We know that most of these commercial banks have all made it clear that they are compliant with the CBN on this line, but it still doesn't really address the matters of efficiency and whether or not in the short term they will be able to sustain the level of demand. Like one of the banks, for example, one of the prerequisites you need to have is a return ticket starting from Nigeria to a destination for at least 5 hours of traveling.
Yes.
That would be one of the many requirements that they need to get this money. So when you look at the commercial banks, do you honestly believe that they have the capacity to fulfill consumer orders for foreign exchange at such short notice?
Well, I think that they better find it. They should find it. I think that the CBN should roll out a big stick, and make sure that maybe they have to have a scapegoat, show why somebody has to be punished, for doing something that they're not supposed to do. They have to. I mean, if Central Bank, what finds that Central Bank is going to be allocating about $200 million to the commercial banks, and they say they will have a dedicated counter for this purpose. And obviously, we all know that it's not going to be the same thing as if you go outside and buy from the man on the street. We know there are some problems. But also they said that I had, after the meeting they had last time, that we're not going to impose any additional charges, for those who come to them for this. But the commercial banks have a critical role to play in this. The success of what's happening now is going to be dependent. Besides the fact that the Governor of Central Bank obviously is going to come under tremendous pressure. I expect that he must appreciate the fact that we need some stability. So we can't have policy flip-flops, and then expect that people will find us attractive. People are going to come to an environment. They're looking for stability.
Yeah.
So if I'm coming to Nigeria and I have other places to go, we're in competition with other countries. Yes. And so if you're coming to us, you want a measure of stability. So we hope that the prayer for me, as a disinterested party, is that I hope that then this ban is going to stay.
Doctor, explain to us how this process will pan out. You did mention, in your initial remarks that, all over the world, BDCs are there. You walk into London, Marks and Spencer, you change your money. It's so easy. Now, CBN has said that with this policy, it will no longer process any licenses for any BDCs, that it will even return, money paid by those who have, applied. By this measure, are we basically dealing with only the commercial banks? And in other words, does that mean that BDCs will cease to exist, or they will source their own, funding from the commercial banks? And I ask this because of, travelers and visitors, those who are coming in inbound, and outbound, passengers. You want to change money once you get into a country, or while you are living, change to the currency of the country that you are going to, or when you come back. With this new policy, how does it work for those who are coming in and those who are going out if the BDCs no longer deal in foreign exchange, currencies?
No, I don't think that the BDCs have been stopped from dealing from foreign exchange. No, that's not correct. All CBN has just said is that we will not allocate official foreign exchange to you. That's all. Okay. And so the licenses have not been withdrawn. They still operate as BDCs, Bureau de Change operators. They're still there. But one of the challenges they have is that we had someone that challenged me, but I spoke elsewhere, and there were about 74 BDCs 2004, 2014, my dates. So yes, 74, about that. Somebody says a bit more. But today we have 5,500. And so that number, it's a bit too much. For the sort of business you would have, what has driven that number is the fact that, they had this gravy train whereby you went to Standard Bank and you got foreign exchange allocated to you every week. And then so we turned it into so many things. And they didn't even stop there. It's not as if they stopped there. Now they turned it into all money laundering activities, massive movement of dollars, went through the Bureau changes. And like we were saying, I would expect that people coming in, this is when they should do their job. They should be looking for, those are the people now they should be looking for. But of course, what we know in reality is that we'd expect that the numbers are going to crash. Because then, if you've not been doing that, how many, 5,500, what sort of business are they going to compete, be able to get a business to be able to sustain your operations? And that's the challenge, But the other sources of, like the governor did say, you have embassies and so on and so forth, who also bring in foreign exchange. And what have they done? They've also gone to the power market, to convert this money. That by, dollarizing the economy. And that's an illegal thing to happen. So they bring their money, instead of going through the official channel, to convert their money to Naira, which is a legal tender. They go and go to, to enhance what they're going to get. They go to the power market. And so also challenges, that means that a lot of people are saying that how do we narrow the gap between the official and the power market rate? And that's one of the challenges which I think that confronts us. But that gap is too tempting. So when you have a gap, what is it today? We say it's about 420, outside it's about more than 100 Naira on a dollar. It's too tempting. So you find that you hold that money. If you have that money, you have access to offshore foreign exchange. And what sort of business are you going to do? You take it out there and convert it immediately. And that's a tendency for round trip. And that's why the challenge for central bank is to try and reduce the gap between the rate of exchange, between the official window and the power market window.
All right, Doctor. We'll go on a quick break now, and when we return, we'll continue with the conversation. Okay. We'll be right back. Please stay with us.
Now cross back here to the studio. We are still joined by Dr. Boniface Chizia, who is, of course, an economist and financial expert. The topic of conversation is, of course, this decision from the Central Bank of Nigeria to stop the official sale of foreign exchange to BDCs. And, earlier on you were talking about this decision putting the CBN governor under a lot of pressure. But I'd imagine it's also put the Naira under a lot of pressure too. It's fared very badly this week. Sure, there was some strengthening towards the end of the week, but we saw it drop as low as 525 to 550. Some even saying that they saw it fall as low as 600 Naira to the greenback. So, in the short term, this obviously isn't the type of reaction many would have wanted for the Naira. Do you think, as an economist, that this is expected, or do you think this has been created by speculation? How much worse will things get for the Naira?
Well, I think that part of it is speculative. You can't put that outside. And of course, that should be expected. And what's happening is that you're taking a large chunk of supply in the market. And so if you take the market, we're talking about market, there's no market in Nigeria. Economic spreads, market forces, allow the center to float and so on and so on. If you take the basic economics, supply and demand, essentially, demand is enormous. It's insatiable. So you have the demand, and now a sizable chunk. One of the reasons we don't have market, I say to people, you can't liberalize the Naira. You can't. With Nigeria, you can't. Or dollar in Nigeria, you can't do that because there's no market. No, you can't have a market where there's a central bank that's a dominant supplier. There's no market. So if you don't have a market, there are many players. And these are things, it's not as if we're just coming up to these things now. These are things that we've tried over the period. We've tried them, and our fingers were burnt, and we've reversed with our tails behind our legs, and we went back. So it's going to be difficult. Yes, that's going to be. That's at the whole extent that we're going to the government, the political clout, to be able to withstand that. I think that's going to be important. And when people come and I say, liberalize the dollar in the place and so on, let the thing float, I say to them, if you're in governance, would you allow it? That's the practicality. You can't even allow it, because if you did that, the exchange rate will go to about 1,000 Naira to $1 before our eyes. None of us, when this government came on board, it was about 156. Under 200.
In 2015?
Yeah, 2015. Yeah. Okay, 2015, 2016. And then it's gone.
Yeah.
And in between, what's happening is that they've responded. All these cries, liberalize the chain, liberalize the chain and so on, let it float and so on. And they do it, and then as they move, they see what is happening. They withdraw, they rush back. And it's been knee-jerk reaction. And so that's what it's been. And so it is bound to happen.
But it is the same central bank governor that has been there,
Yeah.
a carryover from Jonathan's administration,
Yes.
to Buhari.
Yes.
So it's still the same.
Let me tell you, I sympathize with
Emefiele.
Yes, because I think that he doesn't think that's making his job as a governor. Has had those very, sleepless nights and so on and so forth about the job. Is managing the rate of exchange. Yeah. And it's been the thing has so dominated financial management in this environment, and it should not be so. And it's so because we don't have productivity within the economy. There's no productivity. And also, Nigerians are not patriotic. So you find that our consumption pattern, is still outside. So we don't, intentionally say, look, okay, I'm going to buy made in Nigeria. And so the man comes and says, look, I'm going to put some certain things, we're not going to force certain things from official foreign exchange, the 41 products. And it's come under fire. Everybody's saying, no, that's not economic management, that's administrative. But you have a situation where, wait a minute, you can't do it, and people are importing toothpicks. And then you sit down as a governor, and you see the amount of money you're putting into importation of toothpicks, and you're telling him to sit down. And so he panics. Panic is part of it. And people say this is panic reaction. Yes, it is. That's the reality of the matter.
Right. Earlier on this week, obviously, it's a topic that's dominated a lot of our programming. Our business show, the Global Business Report, had been speaking to a lot of different BDC operators, and one of them suggested that perhaps the CBN should focus on perhaps auctioning on dollars that would have a limit, a cap to the amount that it could be sold for, and perhaps that would be a nice alternative for keep regulating the price. What do you think? I see your face. What do you think? Because if they have auctions as opposed to having a fixed price, perhaps that makes life easier for everybody to coexist. Do you believe in that?
Why you saw me laughing is that's nothing we've not tried. Yeah, we've tried Dutch. We call them Dutch auction. We've called this. We call that. At some point, and they will try it, and they will change in the process during Sanusi and so on. That's Joseph Sanusi. Before the other Sanusi, the MA. Most of these things, Lamido. Most of these things we've tried. And so we tried them, and then we beat a retreat, we find that it's not working, and so on and so forth. The basic thing is that this economy is not working. Let's call it spade by its name. It's not working. Let me tell you, take the oil market. I have a quota for oil production. This country is not even able to meet its quota. And that's the reality. So you are allowed to produce 1.4, you're not able to produce that. And then you go along and you're paying subsidy. Subsidy that shall be run all along. And this, because you import refined petroleum products, you dedicate about 30% of your available foreign exchange to import.
If we stop importing, Doctor, the pressure on the Naira will
be massive. It will ease.
I thought that ought to be the focus, really.
Yes, but then how are we doing it? What's happening? Today we hear all of us we've been singing there's going to be a game changer and so on. But today it's going to be this week.
But it started like there was going to be a game change, at the beginning.
Yes. But suddenly they're saying lots of things, so we don't know what's happening now. I can't speak. I've been on a sing song because I know that we can take off. We know how to prioritize fuel importation because if we don't have it, we have crisis on our hands.
Absolutely.
Obviously. And some are waiting to cash in. And what's happening is that people are not patriotic. They're not patriotic. They're waiting to wait for festive seasons and so on and so forth. They pile up the pressure and create also confusion and so on in the process. Now, if you can take that away,
yes,
it will ease a lot of pressure on the demand for foreign exchange. That foreign exchange is just not being sold. It's not being sold even it's sold at official rate.
I think if we can take that away and then have sufficient corresponding export capacity.
Yes.
We say we're producing rice now, so automatically that will reduce the pressure on it. But then what else are we exporting, producing and exporting, to the world, so that we don't,
I think to us, there's some things we can export. It's things that we've not been intentional about it. We've not gone on focus and say we're going to deliberately try and, like we did with the Anchor program and so on and so forth. But the whole thing is that when you have is a catalog of mismanagement, and so you have an environment that is not enabling. Your power supply is not steady, and if you're a producer in this economy, you have to provide your own power. Otherwise, you cannot be in operation, and it's ever so expensive to do that. So even water, and even the road to your place, in fact, security, everything you have to do. So there are certain things people operating overseas take for granted, and people who operate in Nigeria, and that's one of the things that will make operators here not competitive. So somebody brings something from overseas and brings it here, and it's still cheaper than the person that produces from Nigeria.
I mean, ultimately, this is a conversation about finding ways that we can first and foremost stop the hemorrhage of valuable foreign exchange, and also look for reasons or ability to bring more in. Ultimately, that rests on Nigeria diversifying. We've been talking about the need for a diversification of this economy for years, for decades. And it just, it obviously hasn't happened yet. So when we look at the ramifications of this decision, do you think that this will now be the new normal? Because I'd imagine that if the CBN says it's refunding the licensing fees of BDCs, it means that for at least the short term, then there's no going back on this decision. Do you think that will be permanent?
For at least till 2023, it looks.
Well, I think that the CBN governor will have egg on his face if he reverses this and if it doesn't last for a while. But I still say the thing is still our environment, So the presidency comes and says they apply pressure on the president. The president calls the governor and says, "Look, governor, let's look at this thing again." And then that says a committee and so on, and then they bring in the vice president to chair the committee, and then that's the central bank give instruction. Why central bank? Why are they going into a digital currency? It's not the vice president that championed it.
E-Naira.
E-Naira. And then the IMF is saying today that it's not the way to go. That it remains on chartered territory, but for the environment.
Because if you're against cryptocurrency, and then you want to go into E-Naira in October.
We banned it, yes.
We banned it.
And we're going to, so that's pressure on central bank. And because the vice president came and said, "Look, you better make sure you're on that train, just in case, because that's currency of the future."
Yeah.
But that future for me is still distant.
Now, Doctor, tell us how much of faith in the ability of the commercial banks to be compliant do you have? And I say this with the hope to use, as a reference, not something that is totally comparable, but then if you look at how difficult it is to get mint, new notes,
very tough.
You'll be shocked, sir. The number of people who are into the business of selling mint.
Yes.
And if you dig down, we're having a smaller version of round tripping.
Yeah.
People in the banks, are pulling this to themselves, having middlemen outside. A bundle of 200 naira, 20,000 naira in 200 naira notes. Do you know how much they get on that? Like 4,000, 5,000 on it.
Yeah.
And that's from the banking system, the same system that we now want to entrust the sales of the dollars to. How much faith do you have in that system?
I think that's like, for me. I did an article. I just said that I hope the banks will not constitute a cog in the wheel. That's going to be important. But if you expect the banks to simply comply, then there's going to be some challenges. I think what I want is the regulator.
To be up and doing.
Yes, up and doing. They have to make sure, that and be very fair. And then, put in some intelligence, in the business, and then not just wait for the people to start shouting or things going wrong before you start acting. And so you see what's happening, and then you call some people up, end this up, and they will sit up. I mean, they come. They've made right noises. So they've said we're going to comply and so on. We're not going to put extra charges coming to us, and we're going to make sure. After the bankers committee meeting, you had some good sound bites. Okay, but what we're saying is that how is it going to pan out? Because the MD is saying, but what about the operators in the bank? Would the MD come and be the person that would deal with interface with the customers?
Absolutely.
So that's those challenges. So it's for central bank. They're putting this in place. They have the responsibility to make sure that this thing succeeds.
There is a lot of responsibility
Absolutely.
to go around.
Yeah, yeah.
Dr. Boniface Chizia, thank you very much for what's been another insightful conversation about a topic that has definitely rustled a lot of feathers this week. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me. It's my pleasure.